Would you ever go back to being a designer?
Not in a professional capacity. No, not in a like a job role or anything like that. No.
Okay. Do you believe design systems are overrated? Hot take.
Yeah, so, short answer,
Yeah, in my head, I see them blending together into becoming one unit very
yeah.
soon. I think we are already starting to see that designers designing in code
hmm
or in
hmm
using prototyping
Yeah,
tools
and
that,
tweaking
yeah.
it. So yeah,
Um, should PMs know how to code, or at least a little?
damn,
That, yeah.
yeah, nowadays that's a good question.
Should anyone know how to code?
Well, designers I still think should know a little more than PMs, I think.
Okay.
But you know what? Now that I say that,
But we'll be fine. This is the Design QA podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Design QA podcast. In this episode, I have with me a dear friend of mine. His name is Michael Rurka. He started his career in design and currently he's a director of product. I think you're all going to appreciate hearing his story. He's probably got a lot of cool things to talk about. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Michael.
hey, Maddie, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here.
How you doing?
Good. It's Friday. It's been a hectic week. It's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, awesome. I bet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's get things started by telling the audience a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who is Michael?
Right on.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, I'm director of product at Hiring Branch. We are in the AI for assessment space for high volume hiring. And historically, I used to be a designer, and I think that's where we kind of connected at first. Other than that, I'm pretty big into like gardening lately. That's sort of my side gig right now.
Mm.
Not paying gig, just like side hobby, I guess.
We're gonna have to
Yeah.
talk about that later
Yeah.
on. Awesome. So, tell us. Let's get things started with an interesting question. Do you still feel like a designer at heart, or have you fully crossed over to PM world? What are you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know what, at heart, I still, in a lot of ways, I kind of identify as a designer, even though I don't touch the practical tools as much. I think because like I think the higher you go into product design, even at a management level or at a market level, even as a designer, you're always thinking about what's the user getting out of this? Can they understand it? And ultimately, it's not just is it usable, is it intuitive, but does this deliver value? And early on, I sort of started to think about that even as a designer. And I think it's becoming more and more front and center in the conversation. So, in a lot of ways, I still feel like I'm a designer in my thinking, especially if I'm thinking about systems and operations and flow charting. It's a lot of these the same traits that I think make a good product manager also make a really great designer, and vice versa.
Interesting. Very interesting. I'm gonna just take a. Can you tell us what did you have to unlearn when switching from design to product management?
Unlearn, right?
Unlearn, yeah.
Unlearn.
What did you have to forget?
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I can't say there was like nothing comes to mind for something I was unlearning. But I think, the way that I would interpret that is more like letting go,
Yeah.
where, in some ways throughout my career at that point, I was probably doing 8 years full-time designer, went to school for it, went through the wave of like mobile design when it was just starting to come out, when all websites on phones were still normal to see like a shitty website on a phone.
Mhm.
And for me at the time, it was about letting go of that identity personally, because my
Mm.
whole life was like the product designer, and I had all these ambitions to be like the superstar at some big company, and it was pretty scary, to be honest, to make that jump. I ultimately sort of changed the framing of what that meant for me, and it didn't mean I had to stop designing. It actually meant that I opened up more space for personal projects and creating my own websites or creating my own products. So sort of that letting go also opened up new opportunities, I would say.
Interesting. Would you say that there were some other skills that were specific to you being a designer that you had to also let go along with these things you mentioned?
I would say it's sort of in terms of the transformation, I think it's a different role. And in a way, I think from a designer standpoint, day to day in your work, you're sort of interfacing with everyone in the company, but you're sort of beholden to the users of the product. So maybe depending on the organization, it's like you think differently about your role. But I don't know. I wouldn't feel like I left anything behind, to be honest. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of like I was here and I'm sort of like just I had to acquire new
Yeah.
skills and
Gotcha.
yeah. And
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
actually I was going to say, the other thing too is like when you start working with designers, in a way I have an edge because I have that language and I have that experience. So working with designers in some ways makes it easier because I can understand the
course.
nuances and I won't
You were one of them.
rush. Yeah, like I was one of them, but if I won't rush particular areas or talking with engineers, like I have that language. But also the flip side of that is like it took me a while to be comfortable letting go and finding the balance between like mentoring designers and not taking over basically. It's like in my head I might have the answer or I might be very confident about a particular direction, but I have to trust the team and I have to sort of back off and say, you know what, like that's not my role anymore and I'm not going to do the company justice or anyone benefit by taking over.
Gotcha. This also got me thinking. Did this shift to the PM world make you change where you stand on what is good enough? Like good enough for a PM? Is it the same good enough for a designer?
Right.
How do you think about these kind of things and how did your mind change after you became a PM?
Yeah, that's a tough one because even now I find myself, one day I'm on one side of that balance, the other side, other day I'm on the other side where, with my designer now we're talking about, products and we're putting out an MVP. And so, what aspects do we polish? What aspects are good enough? And, I've gone through my career different cycles of believing like good enough is good, like a good mentality, but sometimes good enough can be very detrimental. So I think it's a different reframing of the environment will give a better result there. But that's definitely something that I struggled with and still do to some degree. But I think, this is maybe a little off topic, but I think if we ally ourselves with what is the company's objective or what is our objective with this product, and that usually gives way to the conversations that need to be had to determine do we polish this or that, or do we say, you know what, that's good enough. That's not core. And I think it also depends on the culture of the company, who the target audience is. If you're building internal tools versus if you're building a consumer product, there's obviously some nuances to what should be polished or not. But I definitely don't think there's a rule or a golden standard. It's just sort of like it's a big battle of everyone's intentions and where they want to go with the product that comes out on.
Well, speaking of that, then what is the most unpopular product decision you've made and why you still stand by it if you still do?
I think it's the only thing that comes to mind. I would say the only thing that I would think about there is I've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad calls, and I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about it and feeling a lot of guilt in a constructive way. And so, for the most part, I would say every decision I've made, in a way, I stand by them, even if the outcome wasn't so great, just because I recognize that looking back, I operated with the information that I had and the experience that I had. And so all those mistakes kind of culminated to where I am today. So I'm pretty quick to, adjust my path and say, you know what, that was terrible. I'm usually the loudest to admit that. And some people are like, oh, it's okay. I'm like, no. I'm not saying that because I feel bad and I'm looking for a hug. It's like, it's just a fact. We look back, like this was not a good set of decisions that led to this outcome. And it was a bad outcome. Let's be honest about that. So I'm pretty quick to admit that to myself.
Do you have an example of a terrible decision you've made that taught you a lot of valuable lessons? Something you could share, of course.
Yeah, there's something recent, I would say, pretty recent, where actually this past quarter, we were developing, like currently we're building a rebuild of the product. And so the current, the workhorse of our company is antiquated in terms of the technology. We need to rebuild it, reinvent it, all that stuff. So we set out into Q2 to rebuild, and the rebuild, by the way, is going quite well. And so, but at the time, we wanted to reinvent the candidate experience. So again, as a reminder, we build software for contact centers or enterprise businesses that need to hire, 100 let's say, agents for sales or CS. And to get those 100 seats, you might need to go through 100,000 applications. So we simplify that process without having, a lot of CV reviews and things like that. So one of our primary users in that experience is the candidate experience. And so we sort of set off to reinvent the experience. We knew what we needed to improve because the company has, quite a long history. And so we knew just from customer feedback on, where the pain points are, what their wishes were, but we couldn't do anything about it for the longest time. So now we're sort of free to start exploring those. And this is a little bit technical maybe, but we embarked in discovery and delivery at the same time in tandem, which is how you should be operating. The difference is we did these two things on the same product. So simultaneously, depending on the day, it was an MVP, but to some other stakeholders, it was the real thing. And I did not do a good job, to be honest, at communicating that. And, we quickly corrected that. And, we have our RACI chart now, and it's a lot more clear. And I think as a company, we learned a lot through that process, but it did in some ways help us discover new nuances to the experience, but it was also really hard to manage, to be honest.
And if you had to do it in the future, how would you do it? What would you improve?
Yeah. So definitely, I think the challenge that we had primarily was that we were building a net new product while trying to discover different experiences, different features. And instead of this sort of waterfall, let's think everything out, let's design it A to Z, and then let's build it. Day zero, we were like, let's design it and build it and start talking to people right away all at the same time. So in some ways, and I think the startup culture is going, like I literally just read a post on LinkedIn before this call, Google or someone at Google was saying like they are becoming a build first company rather than a write first company. You might have seen that too. And so I think there's some merit to that. I think where I underestimated the technicality there is to experiment on a real product, you need to have a real product, and we didn't even have the thing to even build on top. So it was a messy business. Yeah. So
yes, startups are messy, and I think that's what makes them so fun, at least to me.
That's true. Yeah. Although I am grateful that it was fast. Like it's not like, at a different company where I was at, like my first role as a PM, one of my first big projects was to build a PIM system, product information management system. This project was like 8 months, 9 months, and it was a total failure. And I think that was one of my like pivotal moments in my career. I was like, I really effed that up, Yeah.
Cool. Let's switch some gears and talk about something else. Based on your LinkedIn, and I'm going to pretend that I do not know the facts, you once reduced the employee theft by 99% through a system you built. So what happened there? Is that something you can talk about?
Yeah, I could talk about it. So there was a client I was working with, and his business, he runs a cash business. So now part of the issue is when I met him, he had this huge wish list of like, he wants to build that. Typical sort of like CEO, like wants to build everything today. And so I said like, okay, well, let's focus on the first couple of key issues. Like where's your biggest issue? And now being part of a cash business, he always had issues with employees stealing money. So we're talking like receptionists, things like that, where all of the transaction were taking place on Google Sheets / paper. And so, if you get 10 customers, maybe you just write 9 or 8 and you just pocket the rest. And, and that was actually such an exciting project because again, before I stepped in, there were no mechanisms there were no systems for checking, checking transactions actually go through and did that balance update. So I didn't think I would build like a micro banking system. I built this using Glide apps. Really great tool. We definitely pushed it to its limits after 2 years, but for the most part, it went really, really well. It's impossible to say exactly how much of the revenue was being stolen at the point of purchase, but I would say, estimates range between like 15 to 30%, depending on the day or the month. And this is like a universal problem, not just for the client that I was working with. And so we worked out a system that you would need to have 3 different roles within the company to like collude together, to mess things up. And so pretty proud of the work we did there. But it was just basically like a check system. Order comes in, cash comes in, and everything was recorded all the way. that was that project.
Interesting. But did you say that everything was recorded manually, or was there like a way to, I don't know, like double check these facts? Because can't people still lie when they get the money, or does it depend on
Yeah.
the customer reporting something? Or
Yeah, so right, initially it was all paper, Google Sheets, super easy to lie. You have to look at the history. What we built, for example, every item, the concept of an item that had a price wasn't anywhere. So we built that in, and then it's just like, okay, this is how much you're owed. The receptionist would type in how much, she received, so that that would mark, one of the anchor points, and then a percentage of that goes to the provider. And so all that money is put there. And so that's how we were keeping track of, the flow of money, basically.
Cool. Here is another one. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one quick note on that, because like a funny story there is like when we rolled it out, we had so many issues with compliance and so much funny business, it just didn't make sense. And for a while, because I was the designer for that project, I was sort of the developer too, and the strategist. Anyway, so we were working on this project together, and I was like, are people not getting it, or are they just really trying to cheat the system? So after a few months of like laying people off, because either they would quit from frustration because they could no longer steal, or we would see so much funny business. I'm like, okay, everything seems to be working great for this staff, but as soon as this person comes up, it just doesn't make sense how this person's using the product. You're creating an order, you're deleting an order, you're moving money here, moving money. You're like, what's going on? And so, after a little bit more investigating, you find out, okay, this person is highly suspect. Let's let them go. And then, 3 months later, everything's like stabilized. So it was a pretty interesting kind of rollout experience of a product, I would say.
Yeah. How big was your team?
It was just me and the founder. That was
Incredible. So you did all that by yourself and the founder.
Yeah. I would say a year and a half later, we did bring in a different developer, because I was moving on to a different project. And so I sort of passed the reins, and he was a much better Glide developer than I was. And also, like, every day Glide, this was like at Glide's peak, I would say, in transformation, where every week or two there was a new feature, and we were using them as soon as they came out, the features. So it was like great timing.
Can you tell people what Glide is for those who are not familiar with it? In short, what does Glide do? How did you use it?
Glide Apps. So Glide Apps is a sort of a click and drag app builder. You can it's exclusively for web. So it's not like Flutter Flow where you can export to Android or Apple or iOS, I guess. So it's just a really intuitive, friendly app to build web apps, basically. And so they try to promote progressive web apps as much as possible. But I would say for small projects, like really small projects, honestly, I would go there personally. Super easy to use, ultra easy to use. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. That's a cool story. So going back to your background, history, and the places where you worked at, you've worked in a few different kind of industries, like in sex tech, telemedicine, construction, and now HR.
Yeah.
So you've been all over the place. What's the one product truth that stays constant across all of them?
The first thing that comes to my mind is like, don't trust your assumptions.
Huh. Okay. What about your gut?
Yeah, gut. Like, you know what? That's tough, because like the gut will sometimes tell you something, but you really have to check it. So, because I've relied on my gut throughout my career a little too much, and from anecdotes, even within the company now, it's like we're hearing all these anecdotes, and and you hear them so much from other people that you even start repeating them and start believing they're real. Until you actually sort of look at the market, or you look at the competitors, or you try to validate those stories in your way. Like, usually the truth of that belief is still intact. It's just nuanced into a completely different beast. So it's like the essence is still there, but it's now you appreciate it in such a new way. Like, that's the thing where if I look back, like, not talking to users enough, not checking your assumptions at the door. And I think part of that is also the ego, like really making sure that we're staying objective as objective as possible. And the gut that we are relying on is an informed gut. So this sort of informed intuition as opposed to just intuition. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Cool. I look at it from a different perspective, where I feel that most people do not trust their gut enough, and they should.
Right.
And I think trusting your gut is something you would rely on more and more once you progress in your career, because you would have accumulated a lot of skills and knowledge, and then your unconscious or your inner brain starts analyzing everything and forming that feeling of a gut feeling.
Yeah.
With years, your gut feeling becomes more and more real, or that's how I look at it. So
Yeah. I
it's
see what
not
you're saying.
something that people should shy away from. I think you should rely more on it, but don't do it too early.
Yeah. Honestly, I 100% agree with you. Like I constantly have these feelings where, because I think that the gut is magical in that sense where you can't, it's like sometimes you can't put it in words. You're like, I have a bad feeling about this direction, whether it's process or whether it's like,
It's because your brain picked a small, tiny signal. You didn't see it, but
yeah.
your brain picked it up.
Yeah. And the
Your
hardest
sensors.
part is like in real time trying to communicate that signal when you don't even understand it. And you're like, guys, like just trust me. Like I don't, this is not gonna work. I can't explain it, but it's not gonna work. And people are like, this guy's crazy. Like, yeah, right. I'm with you. I'm
Yeah.
with you 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So on a completely different kind of topic, you're a level 2 salsa dancer and a top Airbnb host.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So what do these two things teach you about building good products?
Makes me think of that
If they do.
proposal post, on LinkedIn that like I proposed to my fiance and this is what it taught me about B2B sales. Like literally that. Okay, quick thing I would say for the dancing humility. I think just, like getting into that beginner's mindset all over again and into new practices. It's a bit hard, especially for salsa. I don't know if you've ever done it or maybe your listeners will relate. But
Too shy to do it.
yeah, but like as the man in that duo, all the pressure's on you pretty much. Like you have to lead, you have to decide the moves, you have to signal correctly because there's no routine. You learn all the steps and it's the man's job to kind of or lead, I guess, whatever scenario you're in. It's the lead's job to drive the entire interpretive dance. That's it. Yeah, it's all improv. So it's if you don't know all the right moves, it's like be a bit repetitive. And my teacher's like, switch it up. I'm like, I'm trying. I got to remember what's the next one. Okay, what's the different one? I've done those 4 moves already. What's the 5th one? I don't want to be too repetitive. And so, anyway, so that's super stressful.
But it's interesting that you're thinking about it like pragmatically and not letting your feelings take charge of how things move on. Is that how it's supposed to be, or are you supposed to mix in both?
Well, definitely, when you're more, when you're more intuitive and you've done it a lot more, it's kind of like driving. Like the first day you drive, it's like you're really thinking about everything, and after that, you can drive with your knees and eat a hamburger at the same time, which is not what I do. Maybe not. I've heard of people doing that. I definitely don't. So yeah, but it really is sort of this balance of letting go, but it's hard when you're a beginner. It's hard when you're a beginner for that stuff. Yeah. To be honest.
Totally get that. Yeah. And then what about the Airbnb stuff?
Yeah, you know what? Airbnb stuff, like it's been about 2 years now, almost 2 years, I think. And
Tell us a little bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is in Colombia. It's in Colombia in Medellin city. We bought an apartment there a couple of years ago. And it wasn't really our goal to Airbnb it out or to make some revenue out of it. It was mostly just a place that we could escape and enjoy during the winter months of Canada. So we did that, and we're up to, I think, like 35 5-star reviews. Like that's all we have, just 5-star reviews. And
incredible.
My partner and I are very, very proud of that. We take great pride in creating spaces and experiences and also a great experience. And both of us have a background in design. We went to school in design and we both did UI UX. And so I think a lot of our systems sort of operations thinking around an experience helped us a lot create a really great Airbnb. I'm short to say business because it's really just a place to enjoy, but also we get to make a little bit of money on the top when we're not there.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So going back to the design and PM world, was there like a moment where you realized I'm not a designer anymore, I'm a PM now? What triggered that? Like how did you jump ships, or when did you decide that, okay, this is the time for me, I'm too sick of this, or maybe the grass is a lot greener on the other side.
Right,
Tell us,
right.
how did you become a PM?
Yeah, so this was during Run. So I was a product manager, product designer there. And
When was that?
this was maybe 5 years ago,
Okay.
give or take, 6 years ago. And but even throughout my career, like I'd always worked with product managers and always felt like I could do the job better than them, and which tells you about like my mindset at that age. This is quite a while ago, and but at some point, like that's what it sort of came out of this place of curiosity of like what would the job really be like. And the product manager that I reported to at the time at Run even told me one day, like, have you ever considered doing product management? Because I think a lot of the way that I thought about products, I think was holistic. It was sort of holistic in scope, that I was naturally blurring the lines between like a UI UX designer versus somebody who's actually thinking of the bigger picture and the business value, and not just strictly that narrow user experience sliver. So more and more it seems kind of natural. And at some point at Run, where I moved to an internal, like we had a few other designers on the team, and I moved internally to like an internal tools team. But because of the nature of the product at the time, there wasn't much for me to do. And it was a really weird space. And this went on for a couple months. And I kind of got depressed because I'm like, I'm not doing anything, and this is actually during COVID as well. So like really needed something to do. And I wasn't like, I'm a conscientious type. So I get a lot of value. I get a lot of self-worth through my work and the work that I do. So at the time I wasn't doing any work. So I was getting really sad and depressed, and like, oh, like, am I a good designer? Like, I'm not having fun. Should I stay here at this company, or should I switch companies? And at one point it got so bad that I opened up to my boss at the time, and I just, well, he noticed that I was kind of checking out. Like, he's like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And I just described like, I'm not really sure. I'm not really feeling it, whatever it was. And he told me about this position that was opening up, which was product owner. And he said, would you want to try that out? Maybe, switch gears a little bit. And thought about it for a couple of days, got back to him and said, let's give it a go. Because that sort of was a way for me to explore that curiosity that I'd always had, which was, what happened if I was a product manager, and what would that world actually look like? And I always thought, absolute worst case, I'll just go back. Like, who cares? Like,
right. Yeah.
do it for 6 months, but hey,
No
I
one's
don't
gonna
like
know.
it. Like, let me go back. Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's really how it started. And, even early in my career, because my first job was actually as a web developer. And so for a while I was straddling like design and development, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do one or the other, but I knew that I always felt closer to user experience and the higher level of business and operations. I think to me, from developer, making that decision from developer to designer to product manager, to me, it's sort of this continuation of exploration, to be honest. It's not because, and again, at that point, I had done like 8 years, and a little bit, I felt like been there, done that a little bit, where it's like, okay, like I feel like I need a new challenge. And I'm not knocking anybody who likes, being a designer for forever. I think I've sort of embraced my generalist mindset, and that I'm kind of like a serial hobbyist also. Like, just every weekend I got a new hobby, and as soon as I started to embrace that, I just felt like, cool, like this is something that I like doing, is just exploring new roles. Like, I've even considered like jumping into a data analyst role. I love data. I love numbers. I love sheets. I love charts, graphs. Like, I've really considered going down that track even. And who knows where I'm going to end up next in 5 years from now. Could be like, honestly, I'm literally considering operations, like a director of ops somewhere. I think that'd be a really fun role in the future. Yeah.
This is an incredible story, and it reminds me a lot with a lot of things that I witnessed firsthand throughout our friendship, throughout the years with us being friends, where I still remember the day when you told me about your invoicing system, the day you showed me some of your spreadsheets where you track so many different things,
Right.
and all the charts in them, and that, like, all these things, yeah, they are the strongest evidence that, yeah, you are someone who enjoys so many different things, and someone who cares about details, and you try to explore different things. Like, you're not just get into design just because you wanted to design. I think your curiosity is what drove you to learn that. And I think it gives you like a huge advantage because it keeps pushing you to do more, learn more, and
Mm,
get better at it. And I love that you are a generalist at heart because this is something I can relate to a lot. And
yeah, certainly.
I get what you're talking about, and I have also experienced some of it, yeah,
Mhm.
firsthand.
Yeah, yeah. And I would even say, like, to push that further, with now with the rise of AI and like lovable things like that, where now where I used to, let's say, put aside design, now it's sort of like even easier for me to even prototype ideas and actually be part
Right.
of that conversation. Because so anyway, that's an exciting turn of events with all this AI tech.
For sure, for sure. And you being a generalist makes you very dangerous with all these AI tools because
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can start executing all those ideas you have and you can experiment with so many different things, everything you had in mind all over the years.
True. I always feel like, I always have a lot of projects going on at the same time. And so, for example, if at all of my full-time gigs, I bring insights or tools or new technologies from the projects that I touch with other people. And
Mm,
so there's some real benefit to having generalists that also, explore a lot of stuff on the side, and you get to level up your own team internally with different nuggets that you find.
nice, nice. Cool. I think we've covered a lot of different areas. Is there anything else about your experience and journey from design to product management that you think you want to add or mention, or like an advice for someone who is about to make this jump? Should they do it? Should they not?
Yeah. Funny enough, I've had a lot of conversations with people. So I've had a few combos with designers that are considering the jump, or people that are entering the tech space through like coaching or through like ADP List is a great resource for anybody that's looking for to tap into some expertise. That's a tough one. I always sort of just try to understand where they're coming from, what their interests are. If they are the sort of generalist type, like I do think designers excel in generalist positions because as you could see, you get to touch so many different aspects and industries, businesses, technologies, interfaces, user types, archetypes, different frameworks. I'm sure, the same could be said in engineering, but I can't speak that much to that. But I do feel like engineers historically are sort of one level behind in terms of like, the top-down business hierarchy, where as a designer, you get to, I think, interface more fluidly with a lot of different parties in the company, especially if you're working on a pretty complex product. And so to me, it's like, where do your interests lie? And also, let's be real, design still requires an aspect of the visual touch.
Mm,
So, the designer's eye, I still think is a real quality. And if you don't have it, then I think you're going to have a hard time unless you're a UX researcher or whatever. I'm not knocking UX researchers, but I do think that's sort of a dying breed, in my opinion.
mm.
Uh, you know, you guys are like, let's say 5 designers in a team. Okay, now's the time to bring in our UX researcher. I don't know if that's the right call, but anyway, that's maybe a debate we can have at some point.
No, that's a very interesting
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
I would love to actually dig a little deeper there and maybe talk a little bit more about AI tools and how they're going to affect the work of designers in general.
yeah.
Because you said that uh, the the eye to design, or the way designers can identify good designs and bad designs, is something that will continue to be valuable. Like, is that true? And why? Why is it true?
Yeah.
And for how long? Maybe that's the better question.
Yeah, that's true. That's a better question because because in a way, even now, like let's say I'm playing around with Lovable, and you'll create something that it's close, but you're like, why would you think that's a good decision? And I don't know if that's because this is trained on products all over or code bases that are like, again, if the training set includes stuff that was designed by engineers, no offense, versus designers, then you're gonna, it's gonna be trying to split that difference and eventually learn over time. But I think the designers will need to, train those systems to put themselves out of business, which is kind of a weird relationship to be in with these AI tools. Yeah, I think it's hard to say. Certainly think so. I think like a debate that I always have is the physical space versus the digital space. I think the digital space is going to be disrupted for experience design in the physical world. I think it's different. I think that is still, you know, an open field for disruption, and it's a lot harder to disrupt because I think the rules are less intuitive and culture is changing all the time, and this physical constraints and all that stuff. I it's hard to say. 10, 20 years down the road, I see some sort of singularity where it's like no one's designing or building anything anymore because it's all it technology is so deeply integrated in everyday life in such a natural human form that you're really just designing experiences. So I think this sort of designer's eye for visual, I think is going to become less and less important over time in the digital space. I believe that because I there was this idea. I don't know if I read this or if I dreamt it, but that the interface is a flaw. It was sort of it's not the outcome we're looking for, right? We're looking for the connection. We're looking for our groceries. We're looking for the destination. It's not the browser's not the solution, right? So there's other ways if we push this out really far conceptually. I think technology looks nothing like what it does today. And maybe that's the idealist in me because deep down I kind of want that. I don't like phones. I don't like apps, which is ironic because I work in the space. But, but like
I get that.
put me in the jungle and I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of life that I feel like I'm going that way. So maybe I'm a little wishful in my thinking here.
Yeah.
But
No, but I agree with you that apps and websites, as we know them, are like on their way to becoming something completely different. A lot of people have been saying that we are not going to have any custom apps built by humans like soon. And I believe this is coming. I think most apps are going to be replaced by AI or large language models who are capable of building a custom app for you specifically for your specific use case to use in that certain situation. Or in a lot of cases, it may not be an actual app. It may just be a conversation you have with an AI or an agent that would do the thing you wanted to do. Like you could have a conversation with it and ask it to, I don't know, like buy your groceries. And it will just do that based on your history and the things you like and the kind of diet that you have and so on. There's not going to be a need and like it's not going to be necessary for you to be looking at an interface and just interacting with it with your fingers or keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's kind of like how, originally, if you think back at, the first generation of computers, second or first generation, where it's like you're literally typing in the commands to run it and to get results and things like that, where the experience revolved around the machine and what was available. And as time goes on, I think we're accelerating towards this place where the machines will resemble our natural way of working. So I think, and robots, it's so funny. Naively, I asked myself for years growing up as a kid or looking at robots, and I kept like, why build a robot that looks like a human? That's so stupid. Just build a more superior machine that could do the job better without looking like a human. Because clearly there's some design decisions that you might sacrifice the utility. So that's how I used to think. But then I sort of clued in. Like, who wants to interface with an ugly robot that doesn't look like a human?
Right.
Like, I have a fridge for that. It doesn't. I don't want to like hang out in my fridge. But if I have something that looks and feels, because again, we're monkeys at the end of the day. So there's a biological anchor here for what is our perception for like good and what feels right. And I think so. Same way that digital, like 2D, two-dimensional digital browser apps spaces are evolving to voice. I think that's just, it's easier, it's hands-free, it's all that good stuff, but it's mimicking how we process and how we live and have evolved for millennia. And I think robots are no different now. So I actually understand that shift. And I think if we push that to its maximum, it's the relationship between human and machine that I think will become, something of like a real relationship, not romantic, but just, instead of tech as a tool, it'll be tech as a, I don't know, what word would you use there? Like
companion or
companion. Yeah. Assistant or companion.
Yeah. I think we are already starting to see a lot of people like developing some kind of emotional connections with their assistants or with the LLMs they've been using, like ChatGPT or Claude. And it's totally normal and expected, in my opinion, because you are communicating with a smart kind of machine or technology that can, I don't know, like provoke some kind of emotions and feelings inside of you. It interacts with you in a human-like and natural way that, I don't know, I think the receptors in your brain picks that as a signal that this is a living thing. This is something more than just a code in a computer. It's something live, something you can connect with on a deeper level besides being a helpful assistant. It's a little bit philosophical, but I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting.
You know what? Like on that note, low key, when I started using GPT voice like more seriously, I don't know, a few months ago. Like for a while, I had tried it out. Like I tried it out when it sucked, you know, and then tried it again, and it just blew me away. Now I do it all the time. It's like okay, it's vanilla now, but that first impression, and even so, like one of GPT's voice called Maple, and she has these weird intonations or these sort of like this this chuckle or like this laugh, and like I'm like she literally makes me think like, is she flirting with me? Like, is she being flirty right now? It's like I don't know if I bet you ever like all that people will relate to this, but I'm like it's weird. I'm like, yeah, I feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable. Like you're being a little too like I don't know what it is. You're being too much for me right now. Because I don't want to get trapped. Like and because I recognize I'm
Right.
like, ooh, like that's dangerous. I don't do that. Like I wish I could tell it be more
Robotic. I don't know.
platonic with
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
please, you
platonic.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's dangerous or if that's gonna have, I don't know, like some bad side effects. But for me, I feel that it's totally okay to develop a relationship with your assistants.
Yeah.
Uh, if they help you cope with something or help you think
Yeah.
about your life or your work or help you be a better friend, partner, parent, or they help you in any way cope with this crazy world, I think it's totally like a good thing or
Yeah.
something everyone should appreciate because we didn't have that before. And not everyone have like their own support system or a big circle of friends and family whom they can rely on when they are in tough situations and all of that,
Mhm.
or if they needed like a mentor or someone to help them with a work related thing or even at school. So we are now in a very good point at time where anyone can get the help they need, all sorts of areas in life. So,
That's
and I'm
true.
very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially if we push that further and like it'll be no different than, you know, you are to me, where it's like a friend that I can call up and say, "Hey, like I'm working through this problem, you know, can you help out? Can we just be my soundboard?" You're right, it's already kind of the same thing.
Yeah. The only
Almost
thing
there.
that's, yeah, it's almost there. The only thing that it's missing, in my opinion, is that it's not experiencing the physical world like we are, and it's not forming its own personal experiences
Mm.
to use like in the conversations and when it's communicating with us. So ChatGPT is still in a box in a server somewhere. It gets a lot of knowledge or a lot of information from a lot of different people, but it doesn't have its own personal experiences and stories which are unique to it that I think they would add a lot to the experience and to it as a, I don't know, like a valuable or
Interesting.
creature.
Yeah,
It
interesting.
would make it more into like a creature rather than just a bot.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that, actually. I never thought of it like that. Where, yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that more. Like how does not being able to experience reality in the physical form, but also novel experiences, like how would you
Right.
even code these sort of experiences and this sort of childlike development and all the traumas that come with that?
Right. Yeah.
That's a real simulation problem, I think.
Right. Anyway, now
Wait,
let's move to the rapid fire segment. Yes, no questions. Very quickly, I
okay,
will be asking you a bunch
ready.
of questions. Just answer with yes or no, but feel free to expand if you feel like it, but no pressure.
Okay,
Just go with your gut.
ready.
Sounds good?
Ready, yep.
All right. So, have you ever shipped something you knew wasn't ready?
Yes, all the time. Yeah. Sometimes a little too underbaked, but yeah. As a philosophy, I try that as much as possible.
Nice. Would you ever go back to being a designer?
Not in a professional capacity. No, not in a like a job role or anything like that. No.
Do you believe design systems are overrated? Hot take.
Yeah, so, short answer, yes, I would say. I would say short answer, yes, just because of how I think the weight of, let's say, the source of truth, I think in a good system revolves around the code. But again, if we're talking strictly designer language, like design system in Figma or things like that, I think yes, that's overrated. And the future is in code and it's more fluid. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, in my head, I see them blending together into becoming one unit very
Yeah.
soon. I think we are already starting to see that designers designing in code or in using prototyping
Yeah,
tools
and
that
tweaking it. So yeah, you're right. It's basically the same thing. It's a different phase.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Have you ever faked confidence in a roadmap presentation?
All the time. Well, no, um, I try to sometimes cover up uncertainty back in the day, like earlier in my career, for sure. Sometimes I just didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, yeah, this looks right. Also, just as a side note, like roadmaps that go out for quarters at a feature level is dangerous. Is a dangerous trajectory. So I don't recommend it for anybody. But anyway, that aside, short answer, yes, in the past, but lately I think it's very dangerous to try to fake confidence because either you bite it now or you bite it later, unless there's a rationale to it. Like sometimes you just literally need to sort of get past this hump. So you'll do whatever you can to just get past like this week or the next 2 weeks or whatever. So sometimes you might use that confidence as a tool to be like, listen, I don't have the answer now, or we don't, but I'm confident, however, in we can figure it out. So therefore, like I might spin it so that it might seem that everything's under control. But even though we don't have the answer now, because I know we can figure out the answer and I trust the process enough. In that way, it's not quite like faking confidence, but it's something like that. Yeah. It's like resting people assured.
Gotcha. Yeah, acting as the grown up in the group or acting as a parent.
Right. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, here's another one. Is AI making product teams lazier?
It hasn't made our team lazier, I can tell you that. If anything, it's risen the pressure so much more because
I agree.
And I kind of see this trend now is like every CEO in the world's like, guys, like look what all these other companies are doing. We need to like why aren't we moving faster? Like every single day I'm having that conversation. It's like, why aren't we moving faster? Why aren't we moving faster? And so in a way, I think the AI tools have sort of sparked a new level of aggressiveness and urgency because we talk about all these different softwares and these competitors that are popping left, right, and center. 3 people teams having $100 million business. Like, wow, what do we? How do we compete with that? So in that way, I don't think it has. I think it's really excelled the energy and also just the excitement of what's possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Should PMs know how to code, or at least a little?
Damn, yeah, nowadays, that's a good question.
Should anyone know how to code?
Well, designers, I still think should know a little more than PMs, I think. But you know what? Now that I say that, I don't even know if that's true. I mean, like, we're having developers now who don't know how to code, build stuff,
But don't you think that people need to at least understand the high level concepts of engineering or coding?
Yeah. For sure. High level concepts, I think is a must. Yeah.
I think for everyone, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and oftentimes when I see in companies, especially at like the C-suite level or director levels, things like that, is when they are so disconnected to technology within a tech company or a startup, there's this friction all the way through because there's this lack of understanding of why is it taking so much time? Why can't we do these 10 different things at once? And so, yeah, I think in that regard, it helps everyone to understand the basics of technology for sure.
Cool. So here's another one. Do you still wireframe or sketch out product ideas yourself?
I do. Now, like I guess I'm sort of like still adopting the lovable sort of prototyping way. But like just this past Friday, I whipped up a quick concept based on a conversation, sent it to our designer. We had a back and forth and talked about it. But sometimes if the interaction is more novel, I will sketch it out But I also think from a flow perspective, I still tend to sketch out flows, or at least in paper or in like Miro or something like that. Yeah, just because I find like I still need to put my brain in that process, like a logical process. And more often what I sketch out is like logical connections between like, here's the
Mhm.
company vision, here's our product vision for the next 3 to 5 years, here's our strategy, here are the capabilities we need, and this is where our product is now, and this is what customers are asking for. And you draw all these lines, and then you draw the line to like, here's the outcome we need to achieve, and here's the
Mhm.
projects that are in progress, and here are the individuals who are doing the work. So that's more what I flow. And I think I don't know, like, I don't see AI replacing that thinking process.
I
Not
agree.
yet,
Yeah.
not for a while anyway.
Or until Neuralink becomes available for all of us
Right.
and it integrates deeply with our brains.
Imagine, like, you're just like imagining, and it's, yeah.
Because I think that's what we are trying to do with sketching. I totally agree with what you said, by the way, which is that sketching ideas or putting things down in Miro or FigJam or on paper helps you organize your thoughts. Seeing them or seeing your thoughts visualized in front of you, put them in the right perspective, and helps you see them from different angles and helps you organize how things are sequenced. Because in your brain, you might have like a ton of ideas or like a lot of different things that needs to happen at a certain point. And you might think that, okay, yeah, I know how things are going to work. But when you put it down in writing or you start sketching and drawing connections, you quickly realize the shortcomings and the edge cases and the things that you might have missed if you just relied on your short-term memory or your quick thoughts at the moment. So it's definitely helpful. But the best part, in my opinion, is that this is not only helpful for you, but also helpful for your team because they will get like a better download of the information from your brain to their brains because they can
Yeah.
see something visual in front of them. And humans in general, we're all visual creatures. I think most of us, we understand better when we see a visual to support what is being said or what is being written somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. And no one likes to read documents.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned. And no matter what you put together, nobody fucking reads it.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. And the last question here is, have you ever learned more from a failed product than a successful one?
Yeah. I would say yes. I would say yes, for sure. The learning signs are much more obvious. It's like now I think what me in my career, it's like what I want to have more of are more wins than failures. But of course, I also think it's like, if you're not careful, you also don't see the wins and you don't notice the wins, because the wins also just sort of like flow by, and like, oh, we got a sale, and or they sort of fade away in the day-to-day of operations, but the problems hurt, and so you tend to learn more from those. I try to think about what has been going really well and what are the wins, and so I think as long as you have a good ratio of the two, and you could counterbalance and not think like, God, my whole history is mistakes, and I'm so smart, but I can't get any wins. Even for me, sometimes it's like I get into that mode until I step back and I think about, okay, what actually was my impact, and okay, I got the company from here to here, so okay, that's pretty good, and I could be proud of that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I love this answer because it hits hard here. I can totally relate to that. I think we all sometimes need a good reminder to take a pause, open our eyes a little bit wider, and look at where we're at. Think about the things that we have achieved so far, and I don't know, like tap ourselves a little bit on the shoulder.
Yeah.
To just, I don't know, like feel a little bit of gratitude or enjoy the moment or enjoy the winnings that we have made so far. Even if they were not a lot of wins, it's always good to take some time to celebrate these small wins. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Cool.
the last thing I would say there is, over time, trying to limit. So I think something I do think about quite a bit in product work is, there's a certain level of experimentation, and you have to be comfortable with things not working out. I think as long as you go into things with a clear hypothesis and a vision for what success looks like, then as much as possible, for me, I'm always thinking, how do I limit the exposure So when something goes wrong, it's fast, it's lightweight, it doesn't set us back, but it's actually just a micro step forward in that way. So anyway, just not only just reducing the failures, but it's not even about that. It's just sort of like reducing the exposure because they will happen. If I believe if you're doing things right, you will hit a lot of these potholes, let's say. But let's make sure they're small and they're frequent. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because that's how you grow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So with that, let's move on to our last segment, which is the segment where you would get a chance to plug in anything, a website, a product that you enjoy, or a personal project that you've recently worked on, anything you would like to share with the audience. Yeah.
Gosh.
Be just your LinkedIn website.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn is probably the place I interface the most with, in the professional sphere. Yeah. So LinkedIn, Michael Rurka, I think that's really the place to be. And, in terms of products and stuff, honestly, my first thought was like, go outside, enjoy nature, grow your own food. It's all that hippie shit, like make your own soap. That's been that's like the first thing I go to. A couple of years ago, it would have been different, but I don't know. I'm in the countryside now, so it's a little different. Yeah. But if you guys want to find me on LinkedIn, that's perfectly fine and we can chat there.
So is there like a website or a project you would like to plug in before we end up?
Sure. I can think about one. So my partner and I are building on the side a product called Amori. So Amori. Is that how you spell it? Amori?
Yeah. Amori.
Like amor, like Italian amor with an I at the end. And so yeah, that's what we've been building. Well, mostly her, to be honest. Like she's doing all the work. I'm just advising, kind of being her support with it. More on the tech side, kind of what technologies do we use? We're using Flutterflow to build it. I help find the developers, things like that on Upwork. So that's a fun project. And it's for people that want to leave a living legacy after their passing. So it's sort of a end of life product, but also we're trying to pivot it a little bit so that it's a bit more into a living memory book. And there's an aspect of AI in there, but not to take away the human experience, but to elevate it and to tell better stories for your children, your grandchildren, things like that. That's Amori. Yeah, Amori.
Cool. Amori.life. Pretty unique product. I don't think people see a lot of products like that often. I think it's with a good mission. I like it.
Yeah. Comes from a good place for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you very much, Michael, for joining me today. So with that, we are at the end of our episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly did enjoy my conversation with you, Michael. That was a lot of cool stuff we talked about, from design to product management to philosophy and AI. I really enjoyed every bit of it. And for all of our listeners, thank you for listening in. And please don't forget to rate us and give us a 5-star rating. That would really help. And if you want to also leave a comment, that would be helpful. I will make sure to reply back as soon as I can. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
But we'll be fine. This is the Design QA.